Hi, Linda. Yeah. So we'll record. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Sounds like it needs a tune-up. Yeah. Okay, and yeah, you could always come up here if you want to. And we could share the screen, but it's up to you. It might just pop right up in 10 minutes. So, okay. Yep. All right. Bye.
Lovely.
How are you doing tonight?
Good. I stacked wood all day. It's been nice for 2 days. We've got another half a cord, another cord to do, and then we're done ready for the winter. So
Wow, that's gonna feel good.
yeah, it is. So you have a good day?
A little crazy. Yeah.
Did you get outside?
I walked around the parking lot once.
Wasn't as warm as yesterday. Yesterday I got a little sunburn, but it was nice. It's nice. Spring is here, so
Oh, that's good news. Yeah, it feels good. It feels like we may not get any more snow.
or cold weather. I don't want to. I have a wood shed too. I have to fill up, and I'm not going to touch that till I know that I won't have to add. So
Yeah.
So it's good. But I enjoy watching these meetings.
Well,
I've never, when I lived in city of Providence, you didn't have anything like we have here. So you elect people, everything is done. And so it's nice to have hands-on. So
yeah, it's such a level of detachment in most places.
yes, it is very, very, very much so. And in Texas, when I lived in Texas 4 years, they have county governs and then town governs. And so it's very, very involved. So
What part of Texas?
Bryan College Station, Texas A&M.
Texas A&M. Is that West Texas?
No, it's north of Houston, east of Austin, and south of Dallas.
Okay.
Somewhere in between.
Yep. No, that my son was in, where was he? Abilene.
Okay.
For 3 years, just recently.
Did you go out and visit?
Many times, yeah. Well, at least three times. Then COVID hit, slowed us down, but yeah.
It gets too hot. It's very hot there in the summer.
They had snow multiple times. They had snow when we were out in January one year.
When I was out there, we had 5 inches of heavy wet snow. It completely disappeared the next day because it was 70 something degrees, but everyone freaked out and they said, "You were driving in it?" I said, "Well, I'm from New England. We're used to all this."
Yeah, because they cancel everything when the snow hits, it seems like. All right, so just need to be clear that this is a select board meeting till 6:30. Hi, Jim. The select board is having a short 10-minute meeting till 6:30 till FinCom officially starts. That is posted. Just wanted you to know, Jim. And Linda got her computer going. That's great.
No, I don't think that helped.
You did. I couldn't see you till you did that.
Yeah. I'm in my nephew's room. It's nephew night. So if you hear any screaming or yelling, it's everything's okay.
Good. Good.
Oh, I didn't hear you, Rita. You muted.
I said, oh, sure. You have them in their cages, huh?
That's an experience, Grandma.
That's what I do. I have a couple of dog cages, you know? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. And so as Becky, the meeting of the Shutesbury Select Board, as Becky mentioned, we're starting this meeting at 6:20, and then at 6:30, we will be continuing the meeting with, I believe, the Finance Committee and the Personnel Committee. But the reason for our meeting, it's just to take up some business that we didn't complete at our Select Board meeting on Tuesday night, which is to review and approve the hauling and disposal contracts. Solid waste disposal. Hold on, I gotta shut the door.
I'm gonna do the same.
Michael, can you call Roxy?
You too. Oh, I missed. Bye. Sorry.
Okay, so Becky, do you want to just give us an update? I know there's late breaking news on the contract.
So tonight, what we're bringing forward to the select board is only the short-term contract for disposal. And I'm going to go ahead and put it up on screen. I think it is, here it is. Okay.
Oh, there it is.
There it is. So the short-term contract for disposal is happening because CEP, the community environmental entity that we were using for the last couple of years, ended up going bankrupt abruptly, and they will not be continuing accepting our trash after tomorrow. So this is a very timely contract. We were paying about $82.50 this year per ton for the disposal of our trash. This contract we were feeling very good about because it came in at $90 compared to $97 from another bid we received. But as we worked through the contract, there was one issue. Well, there were a couple of issues under fees. There was a section C under fees that is no longer there, where there was a charge of $75 per hour charge in the event that we had a contaminated load and workmen at their facility would need to engage in that cleanup. After a lot of discussion, it was realized that the current B, which used to be C, really covers that situation. In the event that an unplanned disposal fee increase occurs, increase will be passed through to generator with a supporting letter from the disposal facility. So what was happening there is, so if we get a bad load that has some kind of radiation because of medical waste, which was the example that was given, that cost could be up to $1,000, and the fee is imposed from the state. and the responsible party is assessed that fee. But the good part is we got rid of the other one that was going to charge us additional funds, as well as the fee from the state. The second issue that we were dealing with is A. As you guys will remember, we had negotiated a fuel surcharge for the main hauling contract, which is exactly what this is now at $4 an hour. I'm sorry, $4 cap. So anything over $4 right now, diesel is going for $5.18. So that additional $1.18 is the fuel surcharge. In this situation, they have spelled it out in detail after having to explain it to me 3 or 4 times. They will be charging us a fee for our trash to go to Seneca to New York. It's a 540-mile round trip. And okay, they're coming in. Thank you, Melissa. So this was the point of contention. We had never paid a fuel surcharge on our tipping fee before. So we were dismayed by that. But in the back and forth and conversation with other companies, companies are getting this one way or the other. They're either increasing their fees or they are having a fuel surcharge added. This is a temporary short-term contract. And we feel that in the long run, this one has a possibility of going down. The companies that have built it into their flat fee can't go down at all. And, the law of averages, we might make out probably the same with this as we would with another contractor. But as this contractor is giving us the services we need and no other did, we were inclined to accept this after a lot of discussion, because this amount was originally at $370. They brought it up to the $4 upon our request. And so at this point, we're feeling okay about the contract. It was a little bit of rigmarole, but those were the issues that we were dealing with. So all that being said, at this point, we're feeling good about the contract. And if if the select board decides to sign it tonight, and vote in favor of it, we will be in position to continue delivering our waste this coming Wednesday. Any questions?
Melissa or Eric?
I just have a question on the fuel surcharge. What if diesel fuel is less than $4 a gallon? In other words, they don't have a negative fuel charge, do they?
No. No, we don't get a credit when it goes down.
Well, it might want to say that then in this contract, I would think, because it doesn't say that. Really, it just says
the fuel charge will be applied to the disposal fee when fuel exceeds $4 per gallon.
Oh, yeah, I guess it does say that up top. Okay, you're right, it does say that. All right, well, okay, there is, all right, that's good then, that's good. The other question I have is just a matter of just information, like how many times have the loads been rejected? Just curious.
I think I remember a case around 2007. I don't recall any since I've been town administrator. And they cited at their facility, they average about 1 a year.
Oh, so that's not, and that's from all the towns that they collect from.
Yeah, and they have 10 towns currently. So it's, the
odds are low.
The odds are low, and the people that do take their trash, I can tell you from experience, when there's something questionable, they don't put it in the truck. So I think that's, so at the source point, they tend to be very cautious. And they probably saved us from a contaminated load about 3 times last year.
Oh, that's good to know.
So Becky, this runs till June 30th, and then do we have to execute another contract?
The long-term contract for hauling will also include the disposal services, so it'll be hauling disposal. So when I get that to you at the next opportunity, it will be a 5-year contract and will
Okay.
include both pieces.
So it folds it in. Okay, so this is just until June 30th, and this is because we really have no other choice. Otherwise, our trash will not have anywhere to go.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So it's trash, we'll just throw it away. Right.
Okay, so do I hear a motion to approve the agreement for disposal services as by and between Casella and the town of Shutesbury?
So moved.
Second,
Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Make peace O'Neill, aye.
Stalker, aye.
Farrell, aye. And thank you, Becky, and thank you to the committee, recycling and solid waste committee, because I know this was a huge amount of work and a lot of time in getting this together. And when do we expect to see the contract with Casella for solid waste?
There was a possibility it would have come today, but it did not. So early next week.
Okay, so we'll do it at the next select board meeting then on April 26th.
I think that is fine. I know they were pushing to do it sooner, but I don't think we have any other reason to schedule it. So we can have more conversation about that.
Yeah, I guess if there's some urgency, we could schedule a special meeting just to do that contract, but keep us posted.
Okay, I will.
Okay, so the select board meeting is underway, and I'll look to the chairs of the other committees present to go ahead and you have a quorum to get your meeting called to order. Jim?
Hi, Rita. Thanks. Yeah, we've got 6 out of 7 members of the Finance Committee, so we can call our meeting to order. Oh, I'm sorry. We have 7. I'm sorry. We have 7 out of 7 now.
7 out of great.
Yep.
Good. And Personnel Committee, are you calling yourselves to order? Is there?
There quorum of the personnel, me, April, George. I don't see Peg, but I think we are a quorum.
Okay, does somebody want to call the Personnel
I'll
Committee?
call the personnel board to order.
Okay, and I see some folks who are on capital planning. Are you guys calling yourselves to order now, or Ellen, you're muted?
We're waiting till 7. I think their meeting
7.
officially starts at 7.
Okay,
Well, we already have a quorum, so we could call ourselves to order anyway.
Okay.
I'll wait.
Yeah, well, you could.
Yeah, because we have 3 out of 5, so we could still call ourselves to order.
okay. So who's going to lead off here?
Personnel Board, do you want to take over? So the reason for the meeting tonight is, as the Select Board and Finance Committee is aware, there's the Personnel Board worked on a market alignment, and with the policy set that we were looking at averages in Franklin County and meeting those. And when the results were pulled, there was an anomaly that did not fit with our grade, our classification schedule, our grade and step system. And so there were a couple situations, and the Personnel Board has worked to address that, and will be sharing that information tonight. George or
Yeah.
April, or do you want to say that?
George,
Well,
do you want to share your screen, George?
Well, I think Becky sent the schedule out to everyone, but yes, I can share my screen. Let me just find the schedule before I do. All right.
Oh, you're a host again somehow, George.
Yeah, we'll have to talk about that, Becky. That's
George
not
is
working out too
taking over
well.
my identity.
She
Yeah,
couldn't
I'll let you-
make a
I'll let you know
meeting,
what's
asked
triggering
me to
that
run the meeting.
later.
Next thing you know,
So you can.
I've
share
taken on
your
a new
screen, George.
identity. Okay. All right, everybody see a market alignment schedule in front of them? So I'm going to just go straight to the bottom line on this. Really what happened was, I mean, Becky gave the introduction. After we completed this and this was approved, Becky and April were meeting to, what's it called? Classification analysis or,
Right. To line up the jobs with within a grade system.
and what they discovered was that the librarian scored at a much as high as or higher than many of the professionals in our town. But when they looked at the salary, because that's really the point of the classification, is it has the different components of a job, the management levels, the supervisory, analytical skills, all things of that nature. And it assigns scores. And Mary Ann's score was very, very high, yet her salary was way below all other people in the grade that she was set in. And the conclusion is that, you know, the market value in Franklin County is just low for that position. So relative to Franklin County, we gave her an increase that put her at market. But relative to the other professionals in our town, the department heads, the finance professionals, treasurer, tax collector, assessor, all those individuals are paid much higher than she is. So I forget, we looked at the salary chart, the grades and the steps, and we found a home for her that we felt put her in a much more equitable position, if you will, relative to the rest of the professionals in our town. So looking at this schedule, if you look down in this section here that I'm trying to highlight, that's the increases that we would see as a town for the market alignment relative, based on the new rate that we would like to propose for her. And what we propose, the second table down here is what we had approved and what the select board, finance committee, and personnel board had approved. So what we're asking for is really an additional $6,000 to bring her to the same level as some of our other professionals. They're not all on this list, but people like the treasurer and the collector. So I don't know, Becky, April, if you had any more, Melissa, to add to that, but that's essentially why we're here.
Yeah, I agree. That is, what we're looking at are the professionals who work for the town who are classified as a grade 8. And the librarian's job description puts that position as a grade 8. And as George pointed out, the average for Franklin County was much, much lower for librarians. But looking at our library, at the librarian's job description, that position is a grade 8.
And I think the other thing that we were dealing with is when we did the original schedule, we put in equipment operators, but they were hired at very different times. So one was a couple dollars more than the other. So his change, so we ended up making sure that that rate was specified on the table so that it actually ended up $29 less than what we had originally proposed. So it's a very minor change, but we just wanted to be sure to get the second equipment operator identified in the market alignment chart because of the variance in rate.
Right. we did adjust that person's rate. The annual impact is $285 that we see over here. So it was, we still gave that person an increase. It just wasn't as large as the increase we were giving them before we discovered this. So there's a slight offset to the librarian's increase, which is what we see over here.
So I'll go ahead and sort of share this for the other committees if everybody's comfortable with that in terms of taking questions. So questions for the Personnel Committee. So yeah, please use your raise hand feature. I see AJ
Yeah.
first.
Yeah, quick question. I'm curious as to whether this classification process, sort of salary scale, is that something, is that kind of a new initiative of the Personnel Committee, or is this something we've been doing in years past where we're looking at people's qualifications and responsibilities and putting them in a classification system?
It is something that we have done in years past and have not done in a number of years. So using a tool that really looked at, levels of competency, responsibility, supervision, and there's probably about 12 different categories. We took the opportunity to look at these again, particularly at this point when we're looking at an alignment compared to the averages from other communities.
Could I add just a little bit to that? So AJ, just for your understanding, the classification schedule, the classification of job descriptions was an essential ingredient to the creation of the whole system when it started. So basically every job description has a total number based on the elements, and what April and I have been charged with and is to go back through. We have obtained an updated classification schedule because it hadn't been done for over 20 years, 25 years. And so with the new, it's been modernized. There used to be, I think, 10 categories, criteria. We now are working with 13, I believe it is. And so starting earlier this year in December, we've started going through all the different job descriptions with a classification schedule in order to make sure that we're up to date, and using that system, you just plug it in, it plugs into our salary chart, and it's, so they all fit together. It's one piece. So it's not that we hadn't used it in years. It's been there, it's been the backbone, but we've been going through a process of updating it. And that as we did that, we were realizing that the grade 8s, the anomaly that was spotted when we did this market alignment popped right out because they're segregated into different grades.
So sorry, just one quick follow-up then. So was part of the issue that we had historically when we had created those grades kind of under scored the librarian's position? Is that something that like relative to other job positions within the town had that specific job been kind of underscored
Actually,
relative to what we're trying to do now?
Actually, I think the end result will probably push her from a grade 8 to a higher grade, be it a 9 or a 10. But when we had originally done it, see, what's happened is because we haven't been consistent in the COLAs, it's had an unusual impact on people's as over time. So basically, the longer you work, there's more possibility for your pay scale to erode over the way we've been handling COLAs, and we've been trying to get a handle on that. because when people, you have to respond to the market to hire people, and there's an upward tendency. So she is not, we've been recognizing that her salary has been lower than it should for a while. And there've been a couple efforts by the trustees to address it, but they hadn't been completed. But it just really popped out when we went through this process and putting all the pieces back together.
Okay, I'd like to, Bob has been very patient. Bob, if you have a comment,
Yeah,
question?
a couple of things, yeah, a question and a comment, well, the comment, which will include a question, is that when I recall this, this market adjustment proposal was presented to the Finance Committee, I made a statement at the time, or a comment at the time, that we didn't really see it until that day. So we didn't have a chance to really dive into it and to really examine how this was accomplished. But we were told that it was a comparative study of towns in Franklin County for different positions in our town government, and that some of our people were underpaid compared to towns similar to us. And so that had to be, was proposed that we correct that and bring these people into line with other towns. We didn't hear anything about a grading system. I don't know anything about that. I mean, maybe I should, but I'd like to know, because I think now we're using a different criteria for the library position, placing her in a grade. We're told grade 8. Now it's grade 9 or 10. I'm looking at the library budget as a member of the Finance Committee, and I see it's gone up significantly for the last 10 years, including the pay scale for the library director. And I don't know how this all relates to the number of hours the library is open and the number of hours she works, her pay for the year or by the week or month, whatever. But personally, I think I need to know more about this before I can vote on it. We just got this information tonight, basically just before the meeting. I don't think that's the right way for us to be conducting our business. We need to dive into this. We need to understand it better than we're allowed to understand it. There's no way that we should be approving this without understanding it better than we do now. That's my position. So the question is, why didn't we have this information sooner?
Well, I think part of it was that we were doing a parallel process. As we were looking at the market alignment and the averages, we were also looking at the grades, the relative for each of the relative positions of these positions. And so it wasn't until we completed that this really popped out, that the average for the librarian position in Franklin County is relatively low compared to the grade that position has in our community based on the job description.
Just if I may follow up, April, again, correct me if I'm wrong here, but when this was presented to us at FinCom, we were told it was based upon a comparative study of wages in Franklin County. Now you're saying that this is not the case with the librarian's compensation you're proposing here, that you're going to use a different criterion for that.
No.
That's what I'm hearing.
Okay, it's the same criteria. What we discovered in doing the analysis of the job grade system, that the librarian, in putting that salary with relative to the other positions that are also grade 8, was significantly lower. And that's what popped out as we were doing the process.
Yeah,
I just think I need more information before I can really weigh in.
Yeah, if you could use the raise hand feature. I see George, but I want to make sure that
it's a
everybody
question to the
gets.
Personnel Board.
Yeah.
So I've been telling the Finance Committee pretty much since December that we've been working on the market analysis, the market alignment study. And so, Bob, you knew we were doing it. And then we presented it. And then we presented it a second time, right? We presented it, we talked about it, and then we had a second meeting to review it. So we didn't spring it on anybody. The conversation had existed for a while. Everybody received the Franklin County wage and salary survey. So everybody knew that we had that information and we were using it. And we had 2 meetings. In the second meeting, it was approved. So it wasn't necessarily out of the blue. We made a mistake in that market analysis because we did not we did the alignment relative to the Franklin County salaries. We didn't include Hampshire or Hampden counties, just Franklin, nor did we compare it to how we were paying people in our town.
Right.
Once this project was done, members of the Personnel Committee started a separate analysis of all the professional positions where they did the classification study. That's where our error in the market analysis came about. So nobody's trying to pull a fast one, and nobody wasn't warning you. This came out of the blue about a month ago, I'd say, and I did report it at the last meeting, and we worked on it. And if this was August or September, we'd be waiting till next year, but we have the opportunity here and now to fix this before annual town meeting. And so that's why we're talking about this now, because we need to wrap up the budget.
Okay, Susie?
I wanted to know if the personnel board, what the vote was for that, for this recommendation.
I believe it was unanimous.
It was unanimous.
Unanimous.
And the other question I have is, when the FinCom heard about the MLP manager, Gail, getting a significant increase, I don't think it was tied to a grade. I'm not sure if it does have a grade, but it has some of the very same concerns. The letter they sent to the personnel board said that there's the level of responsibility and both financial and sort of management issues warranted that kind of a pay change. So I don't know if that position has a grade, and I can say that the FinCom accepted that pay raise without the personnel board going through it in the same manner.
Okay, other questions for the Personnel Committee? Comments?
I see Jim's
So-
physical hand.
I'm sorry, yeah, just use the raise hand feature, please. There are a lot of people and but Jim, go ahead. Thanks, Melissa.
Yeah, just to follow up, the other Jim, I'm sorry.
So Jim Hemingway,
Who do you want?
I didn't realize there were two Jims there.
Go ahead, Jim.
Yes, okay. I'm not wild about this, this entire development, but I think if we're throwing an awful lot of money at all these wage increases, this is going to be quite a bite for the taxpayers of Shutesbury to absorb. Why? And as Susie mentioned, Gail Huntress, Susie and others, and especially you, Rita, remember that one of the things that we do on the MLP is that we have a yearly review of in this case Gail, because she is our one employee essentially. Why not have such a review for town employees? I mean, we're throwing a lot of money at town employees, and I don't see, but we have no way of evaluating their performance or giving them advice as to what they're doing right and what they're doing wrong, which is very much standard procedure in a lot of municipalities, and certainly in the world of business. And we're not doing that. I think this might be an ideal time to start to work on that or include that when in fact we are making all of these very substantial increases in wages. And I'd like to see the personnel board and the select board support this. Remember that Gail Huntress, after we establish our procedure for evaluating Gail's performance, we sent that, or Gail sent that to the select board and said, why not apply this to town employees? And it's been ignored by the select board as far as I can tell. Now, I think this might be a good time to bring that issue back and to work on it.
Okay, I see three more hands, I think, or at least two. Jim Walton.
Yeah, Becky, were you going to respond to Jim? Because if you're going to do that, why don't you go ahead first?
Okay, a couple of things. Number one, unlike in a business environment, we do have evaluations they're in a couple of different kinds. They, but unlike business, our pay scales have never been tied to the evaluations. Gail's pay scale is not tied to an evaluation. Gail Huntress. So it's a separate issue. And there are many ways to do evaluations, and our employees are evaluated all of the time. The second issue is just on the dollar amount. I mean, we are looking at just including the COLA, an increase of $37,000 in the budget. As you said, the one MLP increase for one individual was a third of that, was 33% of what we're asking for 10 employees. I think it's important just to keep things in perspective that these are corrections and keeping our wages online. We're talking about it, trying to keep up with the market with a $2 increase on our equipment operators. So I hope everyone will evaluate things and continue to ask questions, because we're happy to take your questions.
Okay, Jim Walton.
Yeah, just to follow up, and this is just for information. I think somebody mentioned earlier, maybe George, that it was a unanimous vote within the personnel board. How many members are you all at right now?
4 with Becky. 5. Yeah.
5. Okay. Okay, thanks.
I'm not sure they were all present.
I'm sorry?
I'm not sure they were all present at that vote. We'd have to go back to the minutes.
There
to
were
look to see
2
who's
votes.
present.
There was a vote for the original charge, and it was unanimous, and everyone was present, the original chart. The
Okay.
correction, I believe, there were 4 members present. There was 1 person was absent. All 4 members voted yes. That were
Okay, thank you, Becky.
Okay,
I was not
Dan. Dan Hayes, I believe you're next.
So I know this is out of alignment with with what you're speaking about. I have a school committee meeting that starts in 3 minutes. I wanted to just make a quick statement. I only have 2 minutes, but it's really April showers bring May flowers and leaks to our roof. I'm here just to ask that the finance committee, working with the select board, look at a plan B when it comes to funding repair or replacement of the school roof. We've applied again for the Massachusetts School Building Authority for grants funding for the school roof, but we have not gotten that funding in the past. I don't want to rely on that funding for the roof. So if we could have a plan B of allotting a certain amount of money at town meeting to be planned on to be used for the continuation from after the architects are looking at what need to be done to move forward with the repairs.
Okay, I'd like to stick to the subject here, since
So I
a
just
lot of
wanted to say
other people have meetings too, so
Thank you.
including me.
All right, well, thank you so much.
Okay, Dan.
You all have a great day.
Let's see. So is there anybody who we haven't heard from? I just want to make sure. So Bob, Susie, and then Becky. Bob
Oh,
first.
I forgot to take it down, sorry.
Okay.
I just want to make a small point briefly that Gail Huntress is paid from the MLP's budget, which is an enterprise fund. So in some respects, it's not really a concern of the finance committee as much, because we're concerned about the impact on the taxpayers, and her wages do not come from our taxes.
They do come from the taxpayers, because we
They come
pay
from the
a fee.
subscribers. They come from the subscribers of the
Right,
system.
subscribers, which are most taxpayers. Thanks, Susie.
Because we have a very full agenda, I wonder if we can make a motion here to approve the personnel board's latest market alignment figures.
Could I just,
Go ahead, Melissa.
I just have one thing that I think was said. I just want to make sure it was said. The reason the personnel board took this up is because across the country, we're seeing a great resignation and people are moving jobs left and right. And we didn't want to lose any of our wonderful professionals that we have and all that institutional knowledge. And this is a way to make sure that, or not make sure, but at least hopefully help keep them for now, you know. So that was also part of the reason we did this.
So it looks like we have a motion from the finance committee. If you, Jim, do you want to go ahead and?
I was
You're a
just going to
finance committee
second, I was
member.
just going to second the motion.
Okay, do you want to go ahead and take care of that vote or you want me to? We do
Either-
this as one vote or we do individual boards, I think, individual. boards?
Individual
board.
boards.
Okay, so why don't we just go as a finance committee then? Since we're moving
Arvanitis.
down that track?
Arvanitis, aye.
Chartier, aye.
Somebody
I think Bob's next.
was, Bob, you were on mute.
Oh, Groves, nay, sorry.
Hemingway, nay.
Cashew, aye.
Mosher, aye.
Walton, I. That's
5-2.
5-2.
I too.
All right. So do I hear a motion to approve this new wage schedule, select board?
I'll make a motion that we approve the market alignment wage adjustment.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Make peace O'Neill, aye.
Stalker, aye.
Carol, aye. And I assume the personnel board's all set.
Yeah, they already voted.
Okay. So do I hear a motion to, unless we have some other business? I do have another meeting now. Do I hear a motion to adjourn the Shutesbury Select Board meeting?
Susie,
make
if
a
you're
motion.
talking, you're on mute.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the select board meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Make peace O'Neill, aye.
Stalker, aye.
Carol, aye. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye.
Aye.
You all have a good night. Okay, we can move on to the capital planning.
The select
Okay.
board might want to adjourn. I'm sorry, the personnel board. Did they adjourn?
Oh, they left.
I think they've adjourned and run.
Yeah, I didn't hear a motion, but they
Oh,
just,
April, you're still
Two
out
of them are
there.
gone, eh? Oh,
I'm
there's
here, I'm
April.
here.
Oh, okay,
Oh,
sorry.
that's right. Yes, you're in there. Yeah, so moved. Bye.
I'll second that.
Bye.
Arvanitis, aye.
I'm curious, I'd like to watch this a little bit.
Okay,
it
all
gets
right.
complicated.
I'm sorry?
I said it gets complicated. Too many boards are reading at the same time.
Well, we're down 2 boards. Now, we
Yeah.
only have 2 left. Though Ellen, I don't think you called your meeting to order, did you?
Yes, I did. I did way back at the beginning because we had 3 out of 5.
Okay,
And
All right,
that's,
so
I
we're-
think, what we still have. Let's see. Where's AJ? AJ and Bob and I,
I'm
yeah.
here. Yep.
We still have 3 out of 5.
okay. All right, do you, Ellen, do you want to lead us through?
I
the,
thought that had already been done at the previous meeting when I wasn't in attendance.
Okay, so I think tonight, what we're hoping to do, and prior to discussing the funding on individual projects that have been brought forward by the capital plan, it was suggested that a review of the overall capital plan be, that to help get situated and an overview perspective to do the funding allocations, it would be important to look at the overall plan and have a sense of the regularity of vehicles coming on and off the plan. So tonight I'm going to share the screen of the capital plan. And so we can go.
Is this a
through.
document you sent us on the finance committee, at least the finance committee?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, gosh.
Hmm.
I need to blow it up.
All right, I will make it the type larger.
No, that's okay, hon. I can
Oops.
see it, but it's really hard. There, okay, leave it like that. That's fine.
Oops, that's where it started, Ellen.
Oh,
Ellen, if you go to your, to the top under view options, you can blow it up on your own.
oh, okay. That's a good idea.
There's view options right on the top. And you
Yeah,
can,
no, I see that, but I can't do anything. Oh, maybe I am doing something with it. I'm
Yeah.
looking for, no, I can't. It's because I'm on the screen that it came over. Don't worry about it. I'm fine.
Hopefully that the eye
Yeah,
chart
that's
is
good.
working better now.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, so this plan goes out for about 40 years. But right now, to give you a sense, we're in 2023. And the Finance Committee is aware of all the projects that have been requested that the audience might not be aware of yet. But so I'll run through, I've highlighted them in blue in the 2023 column. We had a request from the fire chief, the fire department for, oops,
Nope.
for, oops, an SUV for the fire chief.
Whoop.
Sorry.
Yeah, we've moved
There we
over
go.
too far there.
So for 2023 is column C. So we had that request from the fire chief. We had a request from the highway department for a replacement of the 2003 Sterling. And this is a 10-wheel truck. One thing I feel really good about this is we had estimated about 7 years ago, that the cost of this would be about $225,000. And we actually came in on bid. The bid that that Tim put together is for $225,000. And this is in a year of very, very high raising costs and inflation. So that's a good thing that it came in. The original bid was at 320. So there was a lot of work put into finding more competitive bids. The police department has requested 3 solar speed signs at $3,888 each. So I rounded up just a little bit to $12,000 to cover shipping. The police chief, last year, the prior police chief requested a new cruiser, a replacement for the 2015 Ford Taurus. And last year, the bid price was still, we were able to hold the same bid price that they got last year. And this is for a hybrid vehicle. So we potentially have gas savings included. So that's a 54,000. You can see department totals are part of the capital plan. The elementary school roof, you all remember in 2021 at the last year at the town meeting, we got the engineering going and had approved money for this project for the gym roof. And this project started in August. Unfortunately, the gym roof work could not get completed because of a lack of materials. But they are scheduled to return this Monday during April vacation to complete the school gym roof project. We also are looking, this amount, the 750,000 had been separated out from the gym roof on the capital plan 2 or 3 years ago. This was, the bid came in, this was originally, I believe, 250,000. The actual price came in a bit higher. This includes the engineering. We currently have a request that needs to, we should probably increase this to by the $60,000. The capital plan as a group added a $60,000 capital item to their request this year late in the season and supported $60,000 for engineering for the asphalt section of the 30,500 square foot rest of the school roof. And that's on the capital plan. We had originally estimated the Locks Pond culvert, I believe, at 1.1 million. We were fortunate that the bid we received was just over 800,000. So along with the engineering of 150,000, we were able to subtract out the state grant of 500,000. We last year transferred $225,000 from capital stabilization and still have borrowing that is pending, $201,000 of borrowing that we need to be mindful of, because you can't go out to borrow for a project until it's completed. So we have not yet borrowed. And as everyone was aware, that project did not happen last year because National Grid failed to move a pole. Okay, so the finance professionals came forward to capital plan and requested new software. I don't think they have not made a significant investment in finance software in a very, very long time. This is requiring a $20,000 request that finance will be asked to find funding for. And then the latest situation that occurred, we have had the new library building on our capital plan for the last decade, the last 10 years. We foolishly were carrying it at what we originally were given as a price 10 years ago. It was on the books here for, I believe, $3.4 million. I have put in the figures that the bad news figures that came to the library with the original estimate that was received just a couple weeks ago. That's $8.3 million with a proposed grant of $5 million, leaving the town to figure out how to fund the balance. The savings the town has done, about $250,000 are subtracted. This is an estimated amount. So 350 is what the Friends have raised outside of the town meeting. And the reason the number is at 450,000 is we believe we're going to get a value of 100,000 on the property, and that will be accredited against the cost of the town has to come up with. I want to emphasize this is a worst case scenario. Every attempt is currently being made by the library to have a thorough review of the estimate they received and doing an alternate, not alternate, but independent estimate using more local data. So at the end of all these items, we have the total projected expenditures. You can see going across annually, there are large numbers. The town will always continue to have capital needs. And I just wanted to remind folks that this is true as you go across year to year. There are a lot of departments that have major requirements. This gives you a bigger picture with the fire at the top. And this is not, fully populated past the next 8 or so years, but as things arise, we try to do that. The culvert was on on the plan for about 8 years before it came to fruition, and gratefully will no longer need to be on the plan. Are there any questions on the plan? Jim, you're chairing the meeting.
Okay, yeah. Why don't we start with Bob?
Becky, I just wonder why the HVAC control upgrade is not in this chart.
Previous years.
I think it was on the, okay, it was on there.
Is future HVAC.
No, it's the thing we're
No.
doing now.
I think what happened with the HVAC that with the control needs, it should have been. It
Yeah.
would have been helpful if somebody added it. I'll just say it should have been.
Yeah, well, that's good. We could add it in there.
Yeah. The only currently, the current work on the controls is fully funded at this point.
Right.
But there is other work we could add in the ventilation. And
I don't know if it's the right time to ask you this question, but Becky, how are we doing on putting aside some funds from the whatever it's called these days, the COVID grants that are coming into the town? Are we going to be able to access that money to pay for? That was the original concept of the HVAC controls could be supported by that. Is that something that we've looked into, or have we ascertained that?
yeah, it is. They are loosening up what those funds can be used for. The select board is after town meeting has discussed that they will start working on the best way to figure out how to prioritize the use of that money, because there's more than one request for those funds. So that's going to be delved into more deeply right after town meeting. I'm not the decision maker on how the funds get allocated. So,
Yeah.
as all our town things, we have to go through a process.
Right. Just one point. I think the finance committee should be a part of that process.
I agree. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, Becky, I just had a similar question. Now, the items in blue, those are the ones that were on the capital planning committee's list of projects that they approved this year. Is that what the blue means?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Except the roof replacement, which is
Yeah.
listed here as a $750,000 project. The portion of that we voted on this year was $60,000 for the initial engineering study.
Yeah, and that was going to be my point. I wonder if we should just add a line here for the engineering, and then put a blue $60,000 there. And then the 750 includes that 60,000? Or?
It hadn't before.
So maybe we just add a line here and put that $60,000 in there. A line in there for the engineering, the roof engineering. And put a blue 60,000.
Yeah, because that's all we voted.
Yeah.
We weren't even approached with the other number.
Well, that's because it's during the engineering process where we determine how much the construction of the roof will cost.
Right.
And that's why I believe Bob he made a motion, but it was not supported.
Right.
Oh, we did not vote on it.
We voted on the 60, Bob.
Exactly. Yes, we did not vote on I did some homework and I did talk to a roofing engineer, two of them actually, and got a rough estimate, which I thought was about $600,000 for that work, not the engineering, exclusive of the engineering for construction. So I was suggesting that we entertain this idea. And since that time, we did not vote on it. We had no motion to vote on it one way or the other. You're right. But I do think that we should support this on the finance committee. And by the way, the building committee voted to support it at our last meeting. put that on the record, if you will. And I think there are other people in town that support it. So it's something
This
that
is not an item that has come to the Finance Committee.
I'll bring it to the Finance Committee right now then.
Well, it's not coming from the capital plan. And
We
that's
did not
what's
vote on it there, but there's,
tonight.
okay, the Finance Committee did not get the latest update, in the Personnel Board's recommendations till tonight either. I mean, this is far ahead of town meeting.
You
We
knew
can
they were
discuss
coming,
this.
it was planned at a prior meeting.
Okay. I would like to put this before the Finance Committee. I don't know what the rules are, but I don't see any reason why we couldn't.
Can I just respond just to this issue here?
Yeah, go ahead, AJ.
Okay, so I think I'm going to speak for myself, but I think this is at least my sense of how capital planning as a committee felt about this issue. There are other members here, so they can chime in. But I think the idea was that there's support for the idea of having a backup plan to repair the school roof if the state funds are not, if we don't win the grant for state funding of this project. I think the disagreement or the sort of the confusion or is that we don't have we don't actually have a good sense of what the project is going to cost. And so the thought, I think, among I think the majority of the capital planning committee members was, let's go ahead and get a warrant at town meeting to fund the engineering study, which will then produce a reasonable, a more accurate estimate of what the project is going to cost. And then at that point, we can have a special town meeting to actually fund the construction of the roof based on the estimate that we get from the engineer. So it's not that, I don't think there's any there was any sort of response that said this is not a high priority project or that we shouldn't be working towards repairing the school roof. It was just about process. And so the thought was, let's get this engineering study done. That'll produce a good estimate that we can then bring to town at a special town meeting to fund the project. So I think that was my understanding of it.
Yeah, AJ, I think we had that same discussion at the Finance Committee, and I thought we came to the same conclusion at the Finance Committee. That same discussion and the same conclusion, that once we had a clear estimate or a clearer estimate based on the engineering, the outcome of the engineering study, we would at that point be able to put together a relatively accurate figure for the capital. Ellen.
I was going to say that, yes, you two gentlemen are correct. That's exactly what we did. We need the engineer, and an engineer that's been up on the roof, that's looked at it, that's done all the magic that engineers do on roofs, and to give us a firm number. We can't just pick a number out of the air, because what if it's not enough? And town meeting goes ahead and approves something, and then it's not enough, and we can't do it anyway, unless we have another town meeting. So our best bet is to get the engineering done, and this is what we concluded, and then go from there and have another committee meeting and approve the exact amount.
You can.
Bob.
Yeah, Jim, I just want to say the engineer that I talked to was Tom Ewing, has been on that roof several times. We've hired him in the past. He knows the roof very well. He has the plans. He did an analysis of it for us, and he came up with a pretty good estimate based on what he projected to be the rates for this summer. He's doing other jobs right now, commercial jobs, schools. So he's very much on top of it. I think that if we don't put this money in the budget for 23, then we're going to have to wait a whole new cycle to get money in the budget. And I don't know about you all, but listen, I see this as the highest priority item on our list, to-do list.
Bob, I think we all at the Finance Committee agree with that. And but
well,
again,
you seem to be willing to put it off for another year. That's
no,
I don't think
no one has said that. No one has said that, Bob. No one has said that.
If we don't have
Bob,
money in the
Bob,
budget,
you've been at these meetings. You have been at these meetings, Bob.
Yep.
And we talked about this is priority. This is the highest priority. And the first step is to get the results of an engineering study. We've all approved money, or the capital planning team has approved money for that. And the idea is, as soon as we have that estimate, we go forward with getting approval on a project, on a full project. Now, your comment just now, it sounds like you've worked with somebody on your own to come up with something that none of the rest of us know about.
I presented it to the capital planning committee, and I think I may have mentioned it to our finance committee, Jim.
Okay.
Now,
No.
let me just say, I've been on this thing for quite a while, and Tom Ewing has been on, and Becky knows, but Tom Ewing's been on this as well. And again, when we look at the sheet that Becky just shared with us, we saw that when we financed the HVAC upgrade last year, we financed the engineering and the construction work at the same time. We did an estimate for it. We did our due diligence. We provided enough money to do the job. If there's money left over, we return it to the town coffers. That's the way we've done many projects in the past, projects that don't have the urgency of the school roof. So I don't understand why this is different.
Susie, looks like Becky, you want to respond to to the comment, and then Susie.
Yeah, it's a the magnitude of the job is so much larger, and the variables given the construction costs going so much higher, that you really need a firm bid in hand to proceed. And if you don't have the right number, you fail anyway. And then in the middle of the summer, or at some point, you would have to call another special town meeting. I think doing it in a logical process with this is a huge project for us, where we don't normally do $600,000 and $700,000, $800,000 projects. And you've been making the point repeatedly that everything is very expensive now, and we shouldn't buy other things. I think we need to move ahead. There's a lot of discussion that needs to happen around how to fund each and every other project that has been approved by capital plan.
Susie.
Capital planning is a committee that has a charge, and it carried it out, and the vote was, I believe, 4-1. And I do not want to subvert their process. I want to accept their process, and I want to move forward with the recommendations, discussing the recommendations they have.
It was unanimous, Susie, just to let you know.
Oh.
No, it wasn't.
5-0. No.
No, that
That was for the control, for the engineering.
Yeah, Bob, yeah.
I'm just clarifying, we did not vote on the school construction. of the school.
Ellen.
Correct.
Okay. First of all, having many years ago been trained in this whole area of purchasing, which is what this is, you have to have a specific RFP. You have to go out not just to one engineer, but multiple engineers to get quotes on what it's going to cost us. You can't just grab any one. And therefore, it is imperative that we follow the process. And I know Becky is in the process of following that process to get engineering bids, so we can then get the engineering study done, and therefore get the correct number of what it's going to cost. And at that point, I know that speaking for just based on, everybody's knowledge of the need for this roof, then I don't think it's going to be a problem to get it through my committee. And I certainly don't think it'll be a problem getting through the finance committee. But please, let's do it the right way, not just one engineer. Let's go out, get the 3 or 4, whatever we have to, send it out as an RFP, and then see where we go from there. That's the proper way to do it. That's the only way to do it in this kind of numbers.
Mike. And Becky, is your hand up from before? Or are you in line? Are you in queue?
No.
I'm afraid I just left it up, but I take Mike first.
Sorry, I end up with a different, what am I doing?
Oh, we're gonna be happy now.
I'm getting weird things that I don't want on here, and I don't know how to get rid of them.
Hey, Jim, thanks. I appreciate you taking my comment. I just, this whole discussion is boggling my mind. We've had this roof issue for years and years, and it's getting down to a debate of he said, she said, we're doing this first, that next, or whatever. We got to fix that roof, and we need to put the money up for that. When we've got the money right now, we can do it at town meeting, put an X number of dollars in the pot, and then it's available. I can't understand why there's such a debate about this. We've put money aside for things before. If there's not enough money, go to a special town meeting and get some more. But this is going to be taken care of this year, and it's going to be taken care of soon. And it's mind-boggling that you can't move past this, but you're going to have to, and it's going to put the money away now. Thanks.
Becky.
Okay, I just want to give 2 examples. Last year, we followed the process as Ellen outlined it, and I've outlined it, and the process that the capital plan is trying to do and the finance committee has voted to do, which is not Bob's process of grabbing a number and allocating hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars without any backup for that number. Last year, we went out to bid for the culvert. We had a number of estimates. The first one we had was, so we went with the $1.1 million because that was a potential number. But we made sure that the timing of the engineering was that the engineering would be complete by town meeting. And before town meeting, we were able to amend the numbers so that the cost of the culvert, which we had potentially spent $1.1 million on, came in at $800,001. Now that's $300,000 that if we had used this helter-skelter process that's been proposed by people that are not involved in the actual day-to-day of the procurement, would have squandered, and we would not be able to get that money back for a year. So if any other things came forward, we could not have the use of $300,000. Not that the magnitude hopefully won't be the same, but we don't know what the bids will come in at. And to move ahead with this, just throwing a number against a wall is irresponsible.
Becky, just along your chain of thought there, what would you anticipate the current timeline to be from where we are right now with the engineering, with procuring the engineering activity, getting their estimates, going through the quote process? What would you envision right now, the timeline?
I think the roof engineering, the smaller piece, took about 3 months. The engineering could take up to 4 months. Say 3 months. So that would put us after town meeting at about August. And then we could get, then we would go out to bid, get the construction results, and look towards construction in the spring. I don't think there's any way, even if the money is allocated right now, if you put $700,000 in a new school roof account, that would be very hard pressed to get it done before next spring.
Okay, well, that would still be this fiscal, we would still need to approve money sometime this fiscal year.
Yeah.
At a special town meeting.
Yeah.
And the goal is to have the engineering done. So in case we are still under COVID standards, we could have an outdoor special town meeting, because we were unable to have an indoor special town meeting this winter. So we would want to make sure that that happens so that we could have a special town meeting.
Okay. Amanda.
Whoop, she's muted.
I think you're on mute, Amanda.
There we go. I meant to do that. Sorry. Thank you.
Yeah.
I guess I want to ask the FinCom. I have actually two questions. Can I do both? They're quick.
Yeah. I'd say as long as we don't take too much time, we'd like to try to have anyone that's here joining the meeting to at least have a say.
The first one is really quick, is if we do get the grant money from the school building authority, can't we use that to pay ourselves back if money got allocated and got used? Could that not happen? And secondly, what you guys are saying we can't do for the asphalt section of the school roof, aren't we kind of being asked to do that for a new library building? If not, explain to me what the difference is, please. Thank you.
Okay. Susie.
I am really frustrated in terms of process. If people want to propose something as a citizen petition or something out of the ordinary, go do that. But what we have is a process. We have a capital planning, has a charge. It took care of its charge. We have its recommendations. And I want to close this discussion so we can go on to the other parts of our meeting.
So I don't get to ask a question. Thank you.
Oh,
The questions are asked.
may I answer part of that, Amanda? I think I might be able to answer it. That the library, we already know the cost because the state has done the engineering and done everything else. So therefore we know at the moment what the cost is. Now we're negotiating because of they use Boston firms, so they probably use Boston prices for the construction and all. And we have a different price list out here. So that's, I think, among other things that we're looking at. Yes, Becky, maybe you can interject more. But they've already done all that process.
Yeah, but that's a cost estimate, not an actual design, right? I mean,
Becky?
that's what I understood.
Becky, is that an estimate?
Yeah, they have given us an estimate.
Okay.
So the process they are asking us to approve is authorizing funding up to a certain point. This estimate, and which they pride themselves on, is that their estimates are usually high. The question we have with the roof that we're talking about right now is, 3 years ago, we quoted, we estimated $750,000 to do the asphalt section of the roof. So Bob just threw out $600,000. Other people have thrown out other numbers. Those numbers are lower than what we estimated, and prices of building materials have skyrocketed. So we don't know, there's so much uncertainty around this, and it is not that we don't know what's going to happen. And as far as if we move.
Oops.
Uh-oh.
Becky is frozen up. She's trying to answer your question, Amanda.
Probably a good time for me to speak, right? Yeah.
Gone.
Whoa.
I just want to respond to what Becky said about what I had said, if I may.
Yeah.
Maybe Bob. Yeah. Well, Becky is frozen. Maybe your question.
Okay, I just want to say it's not a question, it's a comment. I did not throw a number against the wall. Did due diligence. I talked to an engineer that's been on the roof. He gave me an estimate and he projected prices for this season. Yes, I think we should add to that for our safety's sake. Look, if we get the state money, all is fine, and the money can go back into our reserve accounts, which are substantial, as we all know. And we can do that. We can get the job done, which we all want to do. Nobody has a lot of confidence that the state's going to provide support for this, because we have a track record with them going back about 5 years. So I just want to get this in train. We have to wait till next year to start the engineering. We're just going to be that far behind. Look, I know about this business. I've been involved in the school roof for a long time. I'm not throwing numbers.
Yeah, Bob, this is misinformation. We're talking about getting the engineering approved at a town meeting that's coming up very soon, and then it happening. That is not the same as a year from now.
We have to get the funds together to get bids on it. That's all, Jim. So if we know we have to provide money, why not just do it? It's not misinformation. It's my opinion. Okay?
Yeah, Bob, you just said we'll get engineering done a year from now. And
Oh,
you
no,
just heard the timeline a little earlier. Once
no, I didn't-
the engineering is approved, there's some time for the engineering to be completed, and then it goes out to bid, and then the project happens once it's awarded.
We have to go after the money.
And we believe that's all this in this fiscal year. All of this. Let's see, we have Diane. And then George.
Can you hear me?
Now we can.
Thank you. I just want to say that there's no uncertainty in this. The school roof has been leaking for a long time. It continues to leak. It's probably leaking right now because it's raining outside. This is the most valuable building we have in town. I can't believe that this is going on for so long, and I really would like people to just stop arguing and move forward with fixing the roof. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Diane. George and then Susie. And Beck, well, actually, Becky is back. Did you want to finish your point, or do you remember what the point was?
I think my computer crashes when it thinks I talk too much.
Uh-oh.
I think the point
We all should have that feature.
Yeah, it would be good. So in trying to answer Amanda's question about whether or not, why not just move ahead, and then if we get the grant, we can't, if they will not work with, they don't allow us to do both in parallel. We've already minimized the project by doing the gym roof. And we should know, that's what's exciting. We should know around the time of town meeting. We have a meeting with the MSBA next week. So we're gonna have a good sense of whether it's gonna go forward or not. If it's not going forward, I think we're on the path. Whether we vote this money at annual town meeting or at a special town meeting is not going to impact the progress of the project. There shouldn't be any argument about this.
Susie and then George.
I want to know what would be the reason to not use the paradigm we have, that things come in front of the capital planning, they discuss it, they vote, they move it over to the FinCom accepts their votes and begins to work out the financing. Why would we be going rogue on this? And what would drive us to do that? What part of our process should make it go off the pattern that we have, the responsibilities lined out?
George, and then Jim.
I was basically going to say that we have a process, basically what Susie just said, and we have a way to analyze all our capital costs, and we're kicking this can around and we're not accomplishing anything. And we need to look at what we have on the list, what the capital planning proposed to us in our last meeting. We have a list of those, we have a list of estimates for those, and we need to see how we're going to fund all those together, including the roof for the elementary school. Everybody understands the need for the roof in the elementary school. We've been talking about it for years. We need to look at the numbers, and we have them, and we're never going to get there if we keep talking like this.
Jim.
Yes, George, yes, we are kicking the can around. The problem is this has been on our table for 8 years, since 2014, and we've done nothing to fix the roof on our most valuable asset here in town. So it's time to act and not to follow Bob's advice. I think is just plain ignorance and stupidity.
We have, are you responding to Jim, Becky, or okay? And then
Just can't let it go.
Ellen.
I can't let it go by, Jim. You know darn well we've done quite a bit. The gym roof was the center of the most leaking problems. It has a parquet floor that is one of a kind that is in danger. That project will be completed in a week. We have not done anything. That is not a true statement, Jim.
No, it is a true statement.
Okay,
It is a true, damn it.
Ellen,
I was just going to ask if we could stop this. I have a Zoom coming up with my family at 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
And I really would like to see my people at the West Coast.
Well, then,
I'll
And I
make my answer
anticipated
short.
this being over a long time ago.
I'll make my answer short. And then I'm done. Last year, we had these items in front of us. The school roof, 2 pieces, the roof over the gym and the rest of the roof. And we as the finance committee talked about it and we all agreed that we would tackle the roof over the gym this year. And then the upcoming year, which we're in now, talking about now, we do the rest of the roof. That's what we're doing. And we've got the numbers to look at as soon as we can get to it.
Jim, can we move ahead to the capital funding sources now, please?
yeah, yeah, we gotta maybe look at both the capital, the total projects that we currently have in front of us for this year, as well as looking at the funding sources. Do you have that list?
The job of the finance committee is to determine the funding sources for the projects brought forward from the capital plan.
Okay.
Yep. George has helped put together a spreadsheet that will aid us through this. If we can share the screen with George.
So this is the updated funding stabilization, capital stabilization, free cash.
Yep, it has everything. He's tied all elements together, including the all the projects that need funding.
This is why I keep talking about we should move on to look at the numbers, because I think it's going to help pull it all together for everybody. And it's going to give everybody an opportunity to talk to all the pieces. And I really think this is going to end some of the conversation we're having. And so I'll take the screen and I'll just point out to everybody on the finance committee, this is the same schedule we used last year to make last year's capital decisions. So you're going to be somewhat familiar with it. It occurred to me yesterday that we had done this last year. And so I resurrected it and I modified it for this year. And so I just would like to walk everybody through what this does and how we can use it. And I think it'll give us a lot of perspective.
So we could see the projected balances too. Is that possible? Will that fit?
I'm so so you're saying the spreadsheet that you showed earlier,
No, your spreadsheet that's up right now, it just cuts off at the on line 23.
It'll be too small for everybody to see. I'll walk through it. Everything will be covered, Becky.
Great, thank you.
So this section here shows what was presented to us by the Capital Planning Committee at our last meeting with the Capital Planning Committee. Most of these are the estimates. These are the estimates that we were given. I don't have my normal keyboard because I'm on the road, so I'm not. It's not going as smoothly as I.
We didn't do the HVAC.
Yeah, the capital items start on.
These are the items right here.
Yeah, except the school roof was only the 60,000.
Yeah, I think you should put in the 60K for the school roof.
Yeah,
since
that's
what's-
60.
yeah.
Okay, thank you. Great.
Yep.
So these are the items that we're looking to finance. So these 2 items were approved last year.
Yeah.
And we know that we're going to have to borrow 200,000. We voted on as a finance committee to borrow $200,000 to complete the culvert. And then we had grants and we applied some cash to the original 801. So that was last year. So we're still left with the 551. So we're looking at needing to finance 201. All the rest of it is taken care of. It's approved. We don't have to vote on it, but it's on here because it impacts our cash balances. Well, it impacts our borrowing, and we need to look at borrowing as a whole for all our borrowing that we might want to do. I'm not saying that we're going to, but I needed it on here to show the borrowing, which I will get to in a second. So that's on here. This is on here because it is an ongoing project. And so it really has no effect, as I'll show in a minute. But anyways, And then there's these guys, which were presented to us. And then this, of course, popped up recently. So what this schedule does is it takes these costs, and we are looking right now at $4.5 million worth of capital expenditures. And it gives us these funding sources. We can use free cash, we can use capital stabilization, we can use the regular stabilization, and then there are other sources such as grants, the fundraising from the library, and the funds that we put aside for the library. So a simple example is the two vehicles, the two SUVs that are being requested, one by the police and one by the fire department, total $99,000 request. We could fund those with cash. And we could fund these other items with cash. And then maybe we want to fund an item with capital stabilization. Now, these are examples that I put on here. They're consistent with what we've done in the past, but I'm not saying we need to do anything. This is what we're going to play with. This is what we're going to talk about and hopefully come to a consensus on what's the right method to fund each of these things. When we choose, in this case, to fund with free cash, we're fully funded. If we chose to use $9,000 out of free cash, we still got a $90,000 shortfall. Either we borrow it or we take money from some other location. But of course, usually our policy for the vehicles is just use 99 cash. But the point is, in an example like the library, we're going to talk about this more in depth, but if we use free cash and then we have other sources of funding, we would still have to do something with $2.2 million. We'd be stuck. We would have to borrow, would be our only option. So by making changes to these, determining for each of these items, what's the proper way to fund it, we can see how much is left over to borrow. And we can manipulate how much we borrow by what we do with each of these different items. So that's why this is here. We will talk about that shortly. The other thing that happens is we know that we have in our operating budget a transfer from funding of capital stabilization of 112,695. So that if we were to use this 225 to fund the truck, that would decrease our capital stabilization balance by 225. But we know that we have 112,695 going in. So the net effect is we still would be decreasing it by 112,305. And the reason I mention that is because we have this handy dandy schedule over here. These are our current balances of the capital stabilization and the stabilization. So our total stabilization fund balance is 827. That's right here, right now. Our free cash is roughly 1,174,000. This is a round number. I think it's close, but not exact. I have to get that number. So we right now are sitting on $2 million of cash. If we were to do the thing, if we were to use cash in the way it's laid out up here, then what would happen is our capital stabilization would actually be decreasing by the 112,305 that we see here. We right now, as it stands, no stabilization money is being used for anything. So at this moment, that shows a zero. And so that balance remains 457. And then free cash, I think we have, if you look up here, you'll see we got 531 for these different items. And so if we stuck with that, then we're decreasing the 1174 to 643. We go from 2 million to 1.357 after annual town meeting if all of these things are approved. So what we're going to try to accomplish today, right, is the finance committee needs to figure out how to fund all these things. So we'll have that conversation about these things, and we'll look at them as a whole in terms of how they impact our cash balances that we will need to fund all those other items that Becky was showing in the future. And what kind of a position does that put us in? So this was a tool we used last year. I think it's still useful. And I think I hope it's helpful. The other thing that I want to show is to the right of this schedule is the debt service. And so the way I set this up was right now, as this stands, if we were to fund things exactly as they're shown here, we come up short $2.5 million, which means we're going to have to borrow if these are approved. And so what I did was I took this 2,461,000 and subtract out whatever we borrow for the library to get the amount that we can would borrow through the debt service capacity that we have built into the operating budget. So basically, we would stop funding capital stabilization to the extent that we would have debt service for these items. And so basically no effect on the taxpayer, as we always say. It would just decrease how much we would put into capital stabilization in future years by this amount in this case. So I'm just using some rough assumptions, 5% interest, because we know interest rates are going up. That's a very conservative number. And then I'm using 5 years. So in this case, the 261 is really, and I don't think we're going to borrow for this, but right now, just the way mechanically how this works, we got 201 for the culvert, which we know we're borrowing for, and maybe another 60,000 in this case. You would get the 261, and it would calculate the first year's debt service. Then the library piece, I have a separate debt service schedule for, because that I don't see how we can fund that without a debt exclusion override. There's no way that we have $113,000 built into the operating budget. You can see that if we borrow 2.2 million, which is this number here, based on whatever assumptions we ultimately go with here, 2.2 million, the treasurer talked to the bank and the bank said 3.82 is the rate that you can expect when you go out to borrow for this. And that's going to give us over a 20-year principal payments will be this annually. The first year's interest will be 84,071, using 382%. And that number will go down each year as the principal balance is paid down at 110 each year. So our starting year would be $194,000 debt excluded override. And at some point, we might want to talk about what a debt excluded override is, really more for the benefit of some of the people who might not be aware, or remind us, some of us who think we know it. So what Becky did was she determined how much this would add for every $1,000 on the average home. The average home is $269,000 in the town of Shutesbury. And so the additional tax annually for the average homeowner in Shutesbury, if we borrow 2.2 at 382 over 20 years, their tax bill would increase for the library $215 a year. That's the way this all works. So the left-hand side, how do we want to fund these things? Down here, we can see what the impact on cash is and talk about, do we like the ending balance or not? We can manipulate the ending balance on some of these by deciding which source we really want to use. And then what we're left over with, our debt service, we can talk about that by looking at all this. So before we move on, does that make sense? Does everybody understand that, or is there anything you'd like me to go over?
Super helpful, George. Thank you.
George?
Yes.
Could I just ask, just because we, above the engineering, if we could put back that 750 line, just so we don't want to lose sight of the school roof funding.
Yeah, we know we're going to spend something. We don't know what the number is based on our long discussion earlier, but we do know we're going to do it this fiscal year.
Right.
We're going to need to plug something in there.
And that's why we had it that way, but we didn't.
Yeah.
Forgot the 60,000.
Yeah, at least for this exercise. For this exercise here, we need to plug in something that we are reasonably, based on our current information, reasonably okay with.
Yeah, if you could do the engineering on the bottom, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I can switch it.
Put the engineering clustered with the other capital items that are being voted today.
Got it. No problem. No problem.
Thank you very much.
Susie and then Ellen.
Being a Luddite, I wondered if George could email us at this meeting, this form, so I can move it around in front of my pen and pencil.
I can work on that while George does. Or
no, here, I'll send it to Finance Committee.
Okay.
Give me a second here.
Hey, Ellen.
I was going to say, George, that's a wonderful presentation. I was fascinated watching everything move. My
You
one
finance
question to
people, you know,
you,
you're so easy. I'm sorry.
George and I go back a long way. I actually had him in school at one point in
Oh my
in Western
gosh.
New England when I was teaching.
Giving away your age, Ellen.
Yeah, I know. Well, I am old.
All right.
But
so-
anyway, the one question I have for you though, George, is your 5 years. I know the state says how many years you can go out to borrow for different projects. Is that a 5-year project?
I don't know. I didn't know what to use, Ellen. So I just,
Okay.
I mean, that's also up for discussion.
Yeah, no, but that's a state law that says you can only go out so many years for different kinds of purchases. So I don't know what, without looking at the law book, which I don't have here, I can't look and see what culverts are.
I think I got everybody on it. So,
But it was still a great
thank
presentation.
you, Ellen. I appreciate that.
A lot of work on your part.
High praise from you.
Ellen, you must have taught him well.
Oh, I did, but he was very bright to start with.
Yeah.
That
Okay.
helps.
I've had 35 years experience doing this. So, you know, this,
Yeah.
and plus this template, we built this template together last year. So, you know, this wasn't necessarily something I did brand new. I just rolled over last year's and updated it for, you know, what's going on.
George, could you put 375 in the other column?
If we win, if we get the grant, which we're in much better shape to do this year, I'm crossing fingers that we get this money. But yes, there you go. So
Wait,
is that a better
that would be the
representation?
MSBC. That would be the MSBC grant.
MSBA.
Sorry, MSBA. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hope.
Okay, we've got Bob and then Brad. Bob, you're on mute. There you go.
Are we talking about these issues? Are we voting on these issues tonight? So we open discussion on these issues, funding sources for these items?
That's the purpose of tonight.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, I just want to know, well, for me, I think that the school roof should come out of our cash reserves or our stabilization money. We might have to
We're not
transfer.
voting on the school roof tonight, Bob.
I'm looking at the chart, okay, Becky?
We're voting on all the
I'm looking
projects.
at the chart. We're discussing the chart, right? What's on the chart?
Is this what the chart should say? I'm sorry, I got it backwards.
We were putting that information there, Bob, just to be mindful. There's no votes on that. Tonight's meeting, the purpose of.
Okay, well, I was just beginning to ask a question, but you will please allow me to finish it. Essentially, what I'm leading up to is that we have $400,000 coming from free cash for the library, a project which we do not know the cost of, and we haven't approved yet. But we do know, we all agreed that we support the construction of the new school roof. And we're taking that, it was projected by the last time I saw it, as a loan or out of some other source. I think that if the library money is put in this chart, it should come out of a different source than free cash. That's my view. That's what I wanted to say.
Okay, we just had somebody, was it Brad? Brad, do you still have a question or comment?
Well, I think George is fixing it. I just thought those two lines had been reversed and he's working on it right now.
Yeah, I was a little slow in the uptake. Sorry.
Okay, Becky, is your hand up from before?
Sorry.
All right, AJ.
Yeah. So I wonder if I could just. I was wondering if we could just kind of maybe quickly dispense with just a few of the things that I think are going to be sort of less controversial. So I was going to suggest, I think as is presented here, school roof engineering, the 2 trucks, and I'm sorry, the 2 SUVs, the speed signs, the accounting software. Can we all just agree and just kind of put that aside right now, that those are sort of probably most appropriate to be expended through the free cash balance? Is there anybody that disagrees with that for those items? All right.
Yep.
So maybe we could just sort of use a different color and just like put that, sort of set that aside for now. We can then focus on the dump truck and the library issue. I think are the really the only two things left that we've got to decide on tonight.
Okay, so everybody saw that what the impact of that is on, a pretty color here. So everybody saw what the impact on free cash is. We
Yeah, so
currently
that
have,
brings us to 983.
Right.
Yep.
All right.
Okay, so we've got, AJ, you want to continue with your process?
Yeah, I guess so. Like on the dump truck, I mean, I think there's a lot more institutional memory here than certainly I would have. I mean, what have we historically done with not the small vehicles, but the big vehicles? Is that typically something we've utilized? Capital stabilization? Is that why you had sort of earmarked it there, George?
I think, yeah, go ahead, George, and I think Becky has a comment on it too.
well, for the larger items, I'll just say it's either debt or we can use stabilization. We've done both for highway trucks in particular, and tractors in fire truck because of their large bills. I think they're large costs. I think we have a good amount of stabilization, and we need to look at different ways of financing this highway truck and the library to see what the right mix is. So I think we need to, as a group, really decide that.
All I was going to say is the last truck was borrowed.
I mean, I think my instinct just to speak is given the library and not, I know we're not deciding tonight, but down the road, but in this fiscal year, the school roof, I think my gut instinct is that we probably ought to fund the dump truck through stabilization funds and not borrow for that. But I'm curious what other members think about that.
Ellen, you're on mute.
All I want to say is good evening. I'm leaving. Got to go to my other Zoom.
Oh, you're all warmed up, Ellen. Have a good one.
Thanks, Ellen.
Okay, have a good evening, everyone.
Yeah.
I'll hear from Becky tomorrow what happens.
Okay. Take care.
Thank you all for your service.
Thanks. Susie.
So what would be the impact on our debt service if the highway truck came through that borrowing line? Would there be enough to do it there?
What the capacity in so I deleted it, and now you can see it shows under the borrowing line, and this 426 is the 201 plus the 225. If the treasurer might want to help us with this, but we have it shows the first year's debt service at 106.5, which is lower than what we currently have as capacity in our operating budget. So it would not increase our operating budget. We would use the 112 that we fund the capital stabilization account with to cover this, and then we'd stop funding the capital stabilization. So yes, we could cover this without increasing taxes.
And does that include the borrowing for the culvert?
Yes, that's the 426, Susie, is the two numbers.
Great, great. That sounds like a possibility to me.
Just a question, I think, to Becky. I know we've talked about this some months ago, but maybe there's new information on the culvert project and the delay there. We have a contract or an agreement for a price. That's pretty well locked in. There's no chance that culvert could be bumped up to some higher number.
No, that's locked in.
Okay. All right, thanks.
But anything can happen now. I'm learning these days though, but from everything I know at this point, it's locked in.
Yeah.
Jim, may I speak? I can't raise my hand because I'm sharing.
Oh, go ahead, George.
So Susie's point about borrowing, we can handle it. And by doing that, we are preserving a lot of cash. And I think applying cash to the library makes a whole lot of sense. Putting a down payment on the library is going to lower our debt exclusion override amount. So Susie's idea, I like it. I'm not 100% sure. I just want to talk this through with everybody, because one thing about we got to think about future purchases. It doesn't look like there's, other than the school roof, there's nothing really large behind the library, but the school roof is a real concern. And if we were to borrow this 225, we are not going to be able to use any of the debt service in our operating budget for the school roof. You know, we have to, it's our responsibility to apply for that grant. I'm hopeful that we'll get it, but heaven forbid if we don't, what are we going to do? Just food for thought. But I do think that if we were to fund the highway truck this way through the debt, then I do think we need to save some of this for the library. It would be good to use some of this for the library, but we also have to think about how much we might have to put down on the roof. The other thing to consider here is this ending title. I didn't call it June 30, 23, because we don't know when all that money up there is going to be spent. Although I guess if we have warrant articles, this money is going to be transferred out of these accounts anyways. So maybe that's not a good statement to make. But the one other thing I will say, though, is we can, for the items that the debt service wouldn't happen for another year or two. I mean, none of the decisions we make here today is going to create debt service in fiscal 23, because by the time the truck is built, by the time the roof is, whatever is done in the spring, as we talked about, the debt service will come, the first payments will come due in fiscal 24. If our cash reserves end up being stronger for some reason, we do have the opportunity to take a warrant article and change the way we fund something, I believe. Becky, is that true?
I think, yeah, you can bring it back to town meeting, next annual town meeting, and amend it.
That truck that you all approved, we're back and we want to use capital stabilization or free cash. We decided, because free cash went up $300,000 and we decided to use it that way. So there is a little flexibility. These are just things I'm asking everybody just think about as they're trying to negotiate, you know, do this or do that. You know, those are the things we have to think about. And that's what this tool is for. But I think to some extent we do want to put, I hate to say it, I know we're not voting on it. The only other thing we really need to vote on is this today. Do we need to vote on the library, Becky?
No, and especially since there is a lot of work being done to review the estimate on the library, so it would be premature anyway, because there's possibility of that number changing still today. So that would be hopefully further discussion at the next meeting.
So this is the only item we need to vote on right here, right now. So
Correct.
what I would propose is throwing a number in here. We know it's a wild ass guess, but throw a number in there. Maybe we get 50%, just so we can see how that fits in when we either borrow for this or we use capital stabilization. For instance, I threw it back in. It's now in the debt, the loan amount, because now the loan amount is the accumulation of these three items. This is over what we have capacity for by 88,000. So what if we said, when it comes time for the roof, we do something like this? I'm sorry. And get our loan capacity down to what's in our operating budget. And then look down low and see what we still have, $1.6 million in cash, even after we pay for this, we borrow a portion of it. And I don't know if this is realistic, but kind of just trying to influence the way everybody's thinking
You're missing
outside of the box.
You need to update the borrow for the school roof. You only have Oh, yeah, oh, never mind. Okay, I didn't.
Yeah,
I
that's
didn't
right.
see your-
Yeah, this would be the
You're good.
grant. Assuming we win the
Yeah.
grant, this would be the grant. If we
Yeah.
don't win the grant, and obviously we're going to need, we heard Dan talking about the dire situation. Now we're looking at a much higher debt service, right? So maybe we need to use a higher number. So those are kinds of things we just have to play with. And all of this is just to help us make one decision, whether to use cash from stabilization account or to borrow for the 225.
Bob, you on mute.
Yeah, I just want to say, we know what the dump truck's going to cost us, George. So we don't know what the school roof construction is going to cost us because there's a lot of variables that we cannot control at the moment. But we can control, we do have a quote for the dump truck. So we can put that into the column. It's a better number. It's a firmer number. I think we should pay for that out of stabilization. We're going to have to borrow money for the roof anyway. If we don't get, even if we get the state grant, which is what you have on your chart. But if we don't get it, we're going to need to borrow even more. I think we could put cash in the school roof as well. I think that'd be a good place to put it. We've been talking about that for years. I do think that the school roof is going to be supported by the town meeting, no matter when we bring it forward, because people do see it as an important thing. And I think the dump truck, if it's going to be funded, it should be funded from our cap stabilization and reserves, and let that loan number that you're talking about, let it develop when we have more information.
Yeah, if we had to borrow for all of it, we're not that far from our capacity. So I think that's not a bad idea. I'd say,
Why don't you go scroll down with that change? If you scroll down, George, with that change, moving it to capital stabilization. Yeah, I mean, the ending balances are still looking okay here.
Yeah, one of the things that's helping with capital stabilization is the fact that we're funding it this year.
Yeah.
And remember, when we are, to the extent that we're going to be funding this to that 112, we're not going to be funding capital stabilization in the future. So, I'm going to reverse this and say, if we go with this in FY24, we're still going to be able to put $612,000 in the operating budget towards capital stabilization because we've only used 50,000 of the capacity. So we can still grow this in fiscal 24 like we are in this number here in fiscal 23, which will help us, especially for some of the other small items that we know will come along.
Right.
So that's the benefit of this not being in debt service. But we certainly have the capacity for debt service for that. And the good news is it wouldn't kick in until the subsequent fiscal year, 2024.
Hey, Susie.
I'm also thinking about the fiscal policies that were signed on in 2018. Keeping around 10% in our free cash, keeping 5% in our stabilization accounts added together. So we still have some money in our ending balances that we can think about allocating. That's the end of that sentence.
So Susie, certainly what's above there right now, we're in both those ranges for free cash and stabilization. Let me put in the 750 and see what the effect would be if we used, well, let's say we use capital stabilization. Just if we were able to do that, our stabilization account would be at 339, which is about 5% of our budget. And obviously we would have to take some of it out of stabilization, not capital. But the point is this 339, right? Our budget's 6.7 million at 10% is 660. So at 5%, we're there. That's 5%. And like Bob said, next year we'll have a better number and we'll have new updated cash balances. I think we're getting some money from the regional school this year. We know that for sure. And see what other things transpire. and how our cash looks. And we know we've got another 112 coming in. So honestly, I think we're in pretty good shape.
George, I think that Becky already has taken that regional school money and put it into the budget, I think for the trash, right, Becky?
Actually, no, not the cash, because that's only one time. He's talking about the $38,000 the
EED
E&D
funds.
for the region. They had an overage, and they're making a distribution, and Shutesbury's portion of the overage is $38,000, which is coming back to our free cash.
Oh, that's beyond the allocation?
Yeah, it's beyond the assessment.
Okay.
But it's only one time. It's actually for this current fiscal year 22.
Yeah, I think, Bob, what you were talking about the final budget, right? With
The final budget where we save money from our assessment.
Yeah.
We put that money that was in the budget going forward into the trash account, right?
Right.
There was no net increase in.
Yeah, it's sort of like a wash, isn't it, Becky? It is sort of a wash, isn't it?
It's going to fund that increase.
Yeah.
It's actually, yeah. But thank goodness, otherwise it would have been top of the taxes. So it's miraculous that we had it, but it's kind of sad too.
Definitely.
So I'll just pipe in here and just say, I think we should use capital stabilization for the highway truck, only because I think, mostly because I think we'll still have plenty in stabilization. We'll have more than 10% of our operating budget. We're only going to decrease it year to year by 112,000, and we're going to get ourselves a bright, shiny, brand new, beautiful truck that'll last us 20 years. And I think that still gives us the flexibility in debt service to add more debt service to the extent that we're already funding it. So that's my personal opinion.
Yeah. So going back to AJ's process, do we, in general, do we have any angst about capital stabilization for the truck? And if not, do we want to go ahead and have a motion on these 5 items as far as how we want to fund these 5 projects?
Sure, I can make a motion to transfer or recommend transfer. Oh, we should probably calculate the amounts, right? Or no, I guess you got it on your spreadsheet.
It's 191 for free cash.
Yeah, so, all right, so I'd like to make a motion that we propose a transfer of $191,000 from our free cash account towards the following 4 capital requests: school roof engineering, 2 SUVs for the police and fire department, 3 speed signs, and Vadar accounting software.
Second.
And do you want to include in that motion the truck with capital stabilization?
I could, but I assumed it'd be a separate one, but
yeah, separate.
it's a transfer from capital stabilization. Yeah.
All right, so there's a second. Any further discussion? Bob, is your hand up for discussion, or are you?
Oh no, I was just saying hi.
Okay, George, if you can kick us off.
Arvanitis, aye.
Chartier, aye.
Groves, aye.
Hemingway, aye.
Cashew, aye.
Mosier, aye.
Walton, aye.
And I can make a motion to take 225,000 out of capital stabilization for the highway dump truck.
I'll second that. Any further discussion? Okay, George.
Arvanitis, aye.
Chartier, aye.
Groves, aye.
Hemingway, aye.
Cashew, aye.
Mosier, aye.
Walton, aye.
All right.
So let's see what we find out about the library and the school. When are we going to hear about the roof, the funding from the state?
I think it usually comes in the later part of May, the second half of May. If you get it. If you don't get it, they don't bother to get around to you till June.
Yeah, great.
George, thanks for that document. That really sort of puts it all together in a
And you all have it.
in a digestible way. Yeah.
You're welcome. I'm happy to help.
Yeah.
So you have it. So we can take that and do the same process next year.
Yeah.
We'll have the school roof, or at special town meeting, we can go through the same process. We can update
Yeah.
it for that. And so, and if I'm not around, it's another hand, so you can definitely take it and do stuff
Yeah.
with it.
Susie.
So we discussed the library transferring any money, allocating any money out of our cash reserves or borrowing for the library. And it was determined that we will wait until some different information comes in, but I'm wondering what timeline that generates. And I wonder if we can make a plan for not for possible allocations, or to look at where on that chart that money could come from. So the timeline is a question. We try to get a solid warrant articles to approve, and we do know that the number for the library will be not to exceed, and we are looking at for some kind of override. So I wonder what we can do with those pieces of information and fixing our timeline.
Yeah, I think that Becky, maybe you have the latest information on timeline, but my understanding is the library team is working with the state to further get a better, clearer picture of what we should expect. Okay, and maybe Brad, I see you with, maybe Brad, you have some input on this too. But that process is going on. So maybe at some point, I don't know, what you all think in the coming weeks, we might have something that we can talk about at the finance committee level.
I don't know when you asked me a question. I'm not sure when you meet. What I know is that we've set things up to talk with another estimator, and that's one of the pieces. One of the big pieces is to come up with a better estimate of what the cost is. Another one is we're going through the process of getting a what do you call it, fair market value price for the property, which is going to raise the amount we already have that's going for the library. There's some other pieces of it too. I'm, as treasurer of the trustees, I'm quite pleased to see all this going at a quite quick pace. I can't tell you when it's going to get finished, other than we know there's deadlines and we're working on it as quickly as possible.
Yeah, Becky, did you have more to add to that?
I just know that the select board is having an extra meeting on May 3rd to go through the warrant and approve warrant articles. We've got to finalize they're hoping to finalize the warrant, as the most of it. I mean, if they will be flexible. I think the library is working hard. Potentially they might have their work done by then. And the question is that it's also the next FinCom. FinCom meets on the 19th, next Tuesday, and then on the 3rd. So maybe part of that discussion about numbers could start on the 19th, but I don't think we'll have solid new information till after that, the week of the 25th. is my gut sense. So there might need to be an extra FinCom meeting.
Well, to that point then, our meeting on the next Tuesday was mostly around approving warrant article or reviewing and approving warrant articles, right?
It's probably best that, well, you have approved all your warrant articles for capital plan. So then the question is is the library and the potential for, it's the library right now, and an update from the meetings, because we're meeting both with the MBLC. I guess we're not meeting.
So I guess the question would be, do we still need to meet next Tuesday?
Yeah, I think the meeting on the 19th should probably be moved because we won't have much new information.
Jim.
Yeah, Bob.
Yeah, look, number one, as far as I know, it's at least is what I believed when we voted. We were voting on funding sources for these items in the capital plan. We were not voting on to approve articles. That's my firm belief. And I did not vote. I would not have voted to approve some of those articles. I was against them when I out of capital planning. I was told the process is first we determine funding sources and then we vote on articles.
Right,
So
you're right.
I'm pretty clear on that. Number two, I really think that we should meet. There's a lot of aspects to this library proposal, which are very complicated. We should have a discussion about it with or without, detailed factual information from the library and all the rest. We could have a discussion about all the variables which we could explore and at least familiarize ourselves with the landscape so that when we do get information, we're already pretty well established in what our choices might be and what our options might be in terms of bringing this thing forward. So I really would support us having a meeting where we discuss this issue.
Okay, AJ.
Okay, so this is probably a good time to bring this up. I was going to tell you that I have a conflict for the 19th. And so I got excited there for a second when you said we might need to reschedule anyway. But I guess also to Bob's point, I think I assume you know this, Bob, but the actual estimate that that the which whatever issues there are with it, but that was posted and is available to the town. That might be a useful thing to study in advance of a discussion we have. But yeah, so if you guys are meeting on the 19th, I'm going to be traveling right during that time. So unfortunately, I would not be.
I know there's a meeting on the 20th regarding the school roof. Maybe meeting on the 20th instead of the 19th, or meeting on the 25th.
What kind of people are involved? When you say a meeting on the roof, is this?
The SBA, we're meeting with the SBA and the legislators to try to push the funding forward.
Oh.
So we might have a sense of what they're about, and what our chances are. But I think if we could push the meeting from the 19th to later in the week or Monday, the 25th, just because the 26th is a big select board meeting.
Did you say Monday, the 25th?
Yeah, to go through all the articles. Like Bob said, what we did now is just allocate money. Then we go through all the articles. The finance committee goes through and votes on each and every article in the warrant that has to do with money. And if we could postpone that to the 25th. But what's Bob saying is he wants a separate meeting just to talk about the library?
Well, I think it would be a good thing. I think it's a big, huge issue, and there's a lot of very varied ways it can be approached. And I think we should familiarize ourselves with that landscape. And then, because this thing is going to be, if it does happen before town meeting, it's going to be a rushed affair. I think we should get ahead of it. I don't know.
So
think.
Bob, are you talking about funding issues? Because
I'm
that's.
talking about funding issues, like, for example, like, George had his chart there. He was
Yep.
taking numbers out, putting numbers in. It had impacts all the way up and down on our account balances. And so we're going to have to look at that. There's some other issues that might come into play that I can't think of right now, but I do think this is extremely important, and we should try to be as prepared as we can.
I think we could give, if we met on the 25th, if you could still give that like at least an hour, hour and a half, and still have time to go through the warrant and vote on the warrant. But I don't know if we'll, yeah, because the DEDIC's, yeah.
Is it Monday? What about Tuesday? What about Tuesday, Becky? Which is our norm, which is our.
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to do the Monday. I'm sorry. I'm throwing a bunch of wrenches in our schedule here. But,
Cool vacation, eh?
AJ, when are you available?
I know it's spring break is the issue. So I could do I could do Tuesday, the 26th, because I'm flying back on that Monday night. I could also do Thursday, the 21st. I'll be away, but I'll be able to zoom in, I'm sure.
Thursday, the 21st.
That's
What?
I can't do that date, so.
Okay.
Yeah,
What
it's a
about
shame. I can do Wednesday, but Thursday and the following week, I'm hit or miss.
How about the 27th? It's a Wednesday.
I'd open for
Good
me.
for me.
It's
Next
good?
Wednesday, a week from, next Wednesday?
Yeah, so,
27th.
yeah,
2 weeks away.
that work?
That will follow that will be after the 26th meeting of the
Select board.
select board. Do they have anything that they need to know from us for that meeting? Or
No,
they just need to
they're-
know on the
they're gonna be-
3rd. They're going to meet on the 3rd.
they're meeting on the 3rd.
So Wednesday, the 27th, and that would be trying to go through the discussion about options and then make a proposal that can be put forward to the warrant.
And reviewing all standing warrant articles. I mean, voting on all the rest of the articles that are complete.
The other thing is maybe in the discussion of funding options, if it needs to be on a second day, since there won't be a vote taken, it could be a day that AJ isn't there, which would be the 19th. So we would meet on the 19th and then the 27th, if that sounds reasonable, because it's a discussion on that Bob's asking for, not a vote.
Yeah, and for AJ, I'd just like to say, that will be taped, so you can watch it on the plane, man.
The 19th to talk about the library?
I would recommend a different day.
Another comment on this. If we're going to talk about the library, is Mary Ann, would it be worth checking Mary Ann's availability and see what her?
Well, you're talking about the funding of the library.
Well, Bob, what do you?
Well, I personally just want the finance committee. I mean, I like everybody, but these massive meetings are it's hard for us to do our job and to exchange views because it's a lot of people. So I just
if we're looking at funding options, that shouldn't really take a lot of time.
That's why I think you can do both on the
27th.
Yeah.
Okay, well, sooner is better than later in my view, but anyway, that's my view.
Okay.
So.
Not that date, not that date.
So what are we agreeing to?
27th.
6:30?
Sure.
How about 7 o'clock that Wednesday? There's an MLP meeting at 5. We may be over by 6:30, but I'm not sure. And it's an important one.
Is 7 okay with everybody?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. The 27th at 7.
AM?
AJ, if you're talking to us, you're in mute.
Sorry, I was just saying thank you for accommodating me. I appreciate it.
Okay, we see, I see two hands up. Are they?
Oh, no,
Your
I can
hand is
lower
down,
my hand.
Susie
Yep.
and George.
Yeah, so I'm traveling myself from the 22nd to the 2nd of May, and I will have my PC with me. I can't guarantee I'll make the 27th, but I will try. But I have a general question about financing for the library. Certainly, if we borrow for the library, it's going to have to be a debt exclusion override. So I assume the warrant article will specify that. I'm expecting that it will specify that. And it has to specify a dollar amount. Is that correct, Becky?
Correct. That's why it gets a little tricky, because the warrant has to be posted, but I think we can, Susie, the posting has to be 7 days ahead of town meeting.
Now I can't remember if it's 7 or 14, because I'm an
I
old
thought it was
woman and
14.
that was a long time ago.
Well, that probably changed, Susie.
Okay.
So-
But one thing about that warrant article, can't the borrowing be, the debt excluded override is an up to number.
Yes,
So
that's my point.
as things start to come in, information comes in. I mean, politically, you have to get that approved.
So
But we
if
also
I may
know,
finish my question.
yeah, sorry.
So, no, but that's where I was going, Susie. But what I was going to say is, so one of the things we certainly can do is say, get a upper end estimate and say, we would approve that. We would ask the town to approve that. But at a later date, when we know how much the school roof is going to cost and the library building gets closer to project starts, we always have the opportunity to apply some capital stabilization, free cash, or stabilization money towards both of those to some extent. But the risk, of course, is for voters, that upper number that Susie was referring to is what we're stuck with if no cash is ever applied, and that could be a very big number. That would be our worst case scenario number. And there's other things at play, I think, as Bob alluded to earlier, that we couldn't think of, we're not sure of. Fundraising is going to continue. Brad, you can correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I think fundraising is going to continue. And I think looking at the success that the library has on the fundraising days, such as last Tuesdays, that success happened when we didn't know we were getting funding from the state. Now that we know we're getting funding from the state, I can only imagine that we are going to continue to get some pretty good support in fundraising. I don't know how much, but we are going to have better information well after April, or I'm sorry, yeah, May 21st. So I don't know that we need to spend a lot of time talking about this. It's going to have to be debt excluded. I'm willing to prove that right now. But I would tell everybody, in my mind, we need to watch this, and we are going to have, I hope that we have and think we'll have opportunity to use and come up with alternative funds to lower the amount that we would actually have to borrow for. I hope that makes sense, and maybe I'm wrong, but that's the way it's working in my brain right now.
Susie.
I do think that we will have one more meeting on Wednesday, the 27th, and all of us should look at the sheet that we generated tonight and use George's worksheet to figure out what each of us wants to propose for cash reserve funding and the effect that would have on an override balance.
We have a homework assignment. Okay. We can also, I think it was AJ that suggested earlier, there's some information on the website too, on the library website that we can help get up to date with, if need be. Okay. Have we covered the capital plan for tonight? Oops. I see Susie again.
we have covered capital plan for tonight, but I also wanted to point out that we need to start working on the FinCom report. And maybe some of that can be done in the week that we're not meeting, which is
Next week. That's next week, Susie.
yeah. And it always happens this way, and it always will happen this way. And everybody on the FinCom needs to be prepared for it to happen this way, that there's a lot of pieces to put together. And this has been, I mean, all offices are working hard to get this together. I can't wait till town meeting is completed.
Mm-hmm.
And we got a reprieve this year by a month.
Do we want to try and get I'm sorry, Becky.
I'm sorry I just want to say that the select board had received a letter from the region, which is basically regarding the track and the debt proposals that the region is working with, the capital amount. And they just have to sign off and say they've received the notice that includes the amounts that get very large for Shutesbury as part of the capital assessment over time. And they asked me what the finance committee was thinking about those numbers. And I'm just realizing I have not added those numbers to the capital plan, or George hasn't added them to his spreadsheet. I mean, worksheet. And I'm not sure they're imminent enough, but we need to do both of those things. And I don't know if your committee would be able to give any kind of thumbs up or thumbs down regarding the track and field project. So the letter that comes to the select board states that the school committee, the regional school committee, has voted these numbers, and they include a new roof and a track, and they get over $100,000 of capital requests, where we've never spent more than 40 in our budget. So the consequences of that is what they're asking. Do you support them signing up? The letter gives the town an opportunity to, within 60 days, decide to hold a town meeting and vote down those projects. If they were to vote them down, it would take 2 towns voting them down to kill the projects. I have not heard anybody talking about an initiative to kill the track projects. I'm just want to make sure that it's been talked about and people are aware of it. And if your committee could vote to recommend the capital plan for the region or not.
Yeah.
Is it Susie?
Have a meeting.
Susie and then Bob?
So those 2 projects have possible different funding sources. There was talk about using CPA money towards the track, and the roof, I understood that they were applying for a state grant. So I think there is some more discussion to go on, and in some ways seeing them as one lump is not particularly helpful. But I guess if there's a real spreadsheet that we could look at that shows how it's parted out, then we'd have a better idea of what resources we would have to meet it.
Yeah, this is going to have implications for our budget, short and long term. I don't think it would be in 23, right, Becky, or is it?
It doesn't, I think it doesn't climb until 25 or 26.
But in the out years, it's going to be a big item. And so we have to get a grip on it, I think, now, if they want an answer from us. And if we think it's in the best interest of the town to go forward, we should say that. And if we have problems with it, we should express those problems to them, as soon as we can. So I think we should meet whenever it's possible and try to air this issue out and see what the implications are. I don't know what, with the same numbers that we had last time, Becky, is that what they've come up with?
Yep.
Plan, the most expensive option, is that it?
No, I don't, no. I thought you guys all saw the last numbers.
Well, I'll
Yes.
have to look it up, because
We got those from, yeah, you forwarded those from Doug or
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
somebody. Yeah.
For the last meeting.
Yeah, Bob, we have the,
right, so
Yeah,
when are
those
we gonna
numbers.
talk about it, Jim? That's the question.
yeah, and we need to get it, we need to get that, yeah, plugged into our capital, into that spreadsheet and see what impact it has.
Yeah.
George,
We have a meeting on May 8th. You have a meeting on May 8th. Maybe that can be on May 8th. I'm sorry, May 3rd.
I was going to say what Bob said. I agree with what Bob said. We need to see the details. We know that we might be able to use CPA money on one of those items, the track piece. And so we do need more details before we can really respond to the question. And yes, that should be incorporated in that analysis when we're talking about the school and the library, school roof and the library. We certainly have to talk about this. This has historically been a debt excluded override item, but it doesn't have to be, right, Becky?
Right. I asked Doug whether it was planned to be a debt exclusion and he said no.
It's up to the towns on how they finance it. I think.
Well,
They're just going to bill us. We're going to pay the bill. How are we going to finance the bill?
no, I think they have to initiate it as a debt excluded. I'll look into that closer. But I think if we could plan to have a full, you guys have a full discussion on May 3rd about it, that would be helpful.
It would be helpful.
it'd be important to get an answer to that question too, Becky. If we're already locked in to a debt exclusion, we need to know that.
Yeah. Well,
if that's the only option.
They're not planning to do a debt exclusion, so the town would have to
make that decision.
figure out
And,
that.
Okay.
and then my final part of that question is, would we need the CPA committee involved? To get their opinion about it?
That piece, I think I can't remember. Oh, I asked Alan Hansen. And if the regional school thinks we should go for a CPA project, they're the ones that bring the project to the CPA. So we were just looking at timing and saying, well, they must not be ready because the regional school will initiate the application for the CPA funds. So on your spreadsheet, George, you would add CPA column for revenue, and we would check with the school, the regional school, what kind of, when they think they're going to forward that, because they were planning on, they were talking about CPA money from different towns.
But back to the same question I had before, isn't it the town that decides how they're going to fund their portion of that cost? I don't want the region telling us how to spend our CPA.
No.
Doesn't
They
sound right to
apply.
me.
No, but they apply for
I
the,
understand they apply, but the decision that we as a town need to make on how to finance it is my perspective on this, is where I'm coming from.
We'll
But
be
I
voting on the CPA article at town meeting, so.
right.
And the finance committee can weigh in on that.
The problem with CPA for Shutesbury is each of the other towns have millions of dollars of CPA funds. Shutesbury has less than $500,000. So if you're trying to fund something ongoing for 10 years or 5 years, but you can use CPA funds for debt. So you could borrow for the project and pay debt.
But couldn't we also fund a portion of the track through two sources, some cash or debt and CPA?
Yep.
So we do need to do a full analysis of that.
And the other issue is I think from talking to Steve Sullivan, the regional rep, all the other towns support it. So it doesn't appear to be likely. I mean, even if Shutesbury put an article to vote against it on their town meeting, it'd probably be a moot point. It would take another town.
When you say other towns have already approved it, at what level?
No, I said they're in favor of it.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because it's not a formal process, because the school committee votes it and then we have to pay it. Unless we,
Three-fourths vote is required. 3 of the 4 towns voting is required for the project to go forward, is what you're saying.
no, from what he said, I think he said 2 have to turn it down. I'll forward you the email from Doug Slaughter to the whole committee.
Wow, so 2 people can make this project go forward. 2 towns can.
No,
3.
it would take,
3.
I'll just send, let me get it.
That's what I asked. I asked, does it take 3 towns to, if 3 towns approve, it goes. That was my question.
Yes,
Okay. And you're saying right now, the boards, the finance committee, select boards, elementary or school committees are, for those 3 towns, are all going to recommend funding with CPA. They're all going to recommend the project and to fund it with CPA.
well, they're not gonna fight it, because it's, you have to be proactive. It's not, there's not gonna be just a vote to approve it. If you don't do anything, it's approved.
Oh,
You have to proactively fight it and go against it and have a town meeting to fight it. And it doesn't appear that other towns would support that at this point.
okay.
In terms of timing, is this asking for a warrant article from our town to give its approval, or
No,
or not give its approval?
they're not asking for anything. They're letting us know that if our town does not, wants to fight it, they have to act within a certain amount of time. They have to take a vote against it.
So so would that end up being a warrant article in Shutesbury if we decided to oppose it? And therefore, the select board finishing up the warrant approvals on May 3rd would conflict with that?
Well, I think they could leave that. I mean, if you,
Yeah, okay. That's
you
true.
could add it. I mean, it's close enough that,
But that's the timing. It would be on that warrant, that town meeting warrant. Okay.
yeah.
But I'm not imposed right now, so I'm not trying to help oppose it.
no, but we need to understand that the process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is very confusing. I'm just gonna get,
I suppose that somebody could raise the issue at town meeting and vote it at town meeting, and that would be a legal vote, probably, if some citizen, some taxpayer, right?
Warrants warn people what's going to be there. You can't create something out of nowhere.
yeah. No, it would be deemed illegal because there wasn't fair warning to the public that the vote was gonna take place.
Right.
So it would be a warrant article. If there was a warrant article, it'd be one that it would be opposing the funding.
Right.
Yeah. Mike.
Yeah, this discussion is pretty confusing to me as a resident taxpayer and everything. So I'm hopefully you can give me some clarification here. It sounds to me like that you're talking about using CPA money to do the track project at the high school, and that this, if the town is opposed to using CPA money for the track, they have to make a statement about that now. Is that correct?
Correct.
Bob, you unmute.
I don't see it, Becky, I don't see how that can be true, because as far as I understand the bylaw about CPA money, the town has to approve by town meeting vote when CPA funds are spent. So we can approve, this is an administrative matter. I think that's what you're saying, that the region is going to tithe us a certain amount to support this track. As far as portion of it coming from CPA money, isn't that up to us?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, it has to be approved by town meeting.
Right. Any spending of on CPA would have to be approved by town meeting.
Okay, so that's pretty clear, Mike, isn't it?
Yeah, that part is clear. So now I'm confused. Are you talking about agreeing whether Shutesbury wants to do the renovation at the track? I mean, is that the question, is whether Shutesbury wants to put up the money to do the renovation at the track or not? And if that's the case, then when is that decision going to be made?
Mike, I'm going to answer for Becky here.
Thank you.
We have to decide whether we oppose it because it's an administrative action by the region. And if we want to stop it, we have to organize a formal request for them to not do it. And that's also would have to be done by 2 towns, because if there's not 2 towns opposed to it, it would pass through a majority of the members. Am I right?
Correct.
Well, so where do the voters, where do the taxpayers weigh in on this? Where do they get to weigh in on this, or do they not? It sounds like it's just either a finance committee or select board decision that they're going to tell the region, yeah, we'll go along with it, or they're going to oppose it.
As a member of this finance committee, I think we should discuss this at our upcoming meeting. And if we have a real problem with it, then we can figure out what to do about it. But right now we need to look at this, all the numbers, and put them in context, right?
Yeah.
Well, I'm just concerned about where the taxpayers get to weigh in on this. I think this is a big deal. This is a big project, and it sounds to me like it's not going to, unless it goes through CPA channels, residents are never going to have a vote on this.
Well, residents are going to have a vote on how we fund our portion of the assessment. I mean, that's the role that.
Right. I want to back that up,
The
though.
town's gonna-
Before you get to the point where we get assessed for it, we ought to have, the taxpayers ought to have the opportunity to say, no, that project is too big for us. We can't afford it. And then I guess that word gets passed to you guys, and then you tell the region, no, the town isn't going to support it.
And if our town says that and no other town says that, it will move forward regardless.
Well, my point, Becky, is that where do the taxpayers get to weigh in on
Well,
it?
that's what I'm saying, because this is when you're part of a region, the regional school committee, okay, it's the same, it's no different than the regional budget. We get assessed the regional budget every year. The taxpayers can pass the budget or not pass the budget, but if all the other 3 towns pass it, we still have to pay it. It's the same situation. It's the same relationship with the regional budgets and their spending. It's no different than an annual operating budget.
We pay an even amount. We don't have the statutory method.
Yeah, Susie.
The other thing is, this has been in the news. The regional committee has had some meetings talking about it, and people have given their opinions, their individual opinions, and now we're at a process time where the regional school is telling us what project they want to undertake and telling us what our assessment for it will be.
George.
Anytime we're spending money to purchase anything or fund anything, we have meetings, they're public meetings, they're documented meetings with minutes, and then consensus or votes are taken, and warrant article is presented to the town. Funding for this track is going to go through the same process as funding anything else does. It's just, we're talking about a different source with CPA, but that doesn't change anything. The public has the opportunity to hear this. It's going to get out in the public because people are going to pass the information around, and the warrant article will be put together. And there's going to be a lot of thought and conversation before that happens. And Mike, you attend every meeting. So certainly you will have an opportunity to hear what's going on and air your opinion. I don't see how this is different than the way we fund anything else.
Well, George, thanks. You made it a lot clearer. I mean, the before discussion was very confusing, but that, that makes sense now. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Are we ready to adjourn?
Yeah, just following up on something you talked about earlier, Susie. do we want to try and get together next week on this subcommittee?
Yeah, I could go for the 19th. I'm free that night now.
Yeah, we're free now.
Or during the day or whatever.
Yeah, we have
Yeah.
nothing to do on the 19th. Why don't we have a meeting?
Yeah, so maybe I'll send, we can figure out what times work. I think
Okay.
we just go for 6:30 or 7 and see what happens, because I think it's going to take more than one shot. So why don't we just plan that now? Tuesday, the 19th at 6:30.
All right.
So Becky will have the budget completely done. There's one item that needs to be adjusted and then it's completely done, right? So we'll have all the information from the revenue sheet. We'll have all the information from the expense sheet to make all the calculations. Becky, would you be able to have the tax rate estimate done by the assessor? Based on the revenue sheet?
Oh, I can do that, but the assessor is not giving me a new value. He said there's too many changes, so he is not recommending a new value.
So, because one of the things we've been reporting is what the tax rate is and what the tax rate change was.
Right, but I know it's gonna be, the only thing he did say is he believes it's gonna be higher than last year. So we could,
Yeah.
the values would be higher than the increase that we had last year. So if the finance committee wanted, I could add the same amount that was added last year as hopefully a conservative number, and base the potential tax rate on, estimated tax rate on that.
Hey, that was what, like a 1% roughly that we used last year, 1% increase, or was it even that?
I think we used $10 million, $12 million or something.
Oh, for the
Last year, he gave us some figures.
before
Increased value.
was it, I didn't think we had that big of, I didn't think.
We ended up with a $14 million increase in value last year.
Yeah, that was, well, I'm talking about before town meeting. What number?
I'm sorry, what? I don't know what's happening now.
Maybe we don't need to discuss this now, because the report gets started and then it gets hammered on. So,
Yeah.
so if we get through that, the meeting on the 19th, we'll have a list of questions or clarifications we need, and then we'll get back to it.
Okay. Bob.
Yeah, just quickly, we're gonna have a chance to go over the budget and ask questions about the lines before this. Good. And I'd like to just mention the Celtics here in passing and conclusion. They're doing pretty well, Jim.
They sure are. But they got their work cut out. They got their work cut out for them.
They got to get Robert
Maybe we should have a vote about how they should play Sunday. I don't know.
Between losing their big guy, hopefully he's back. Hopefully he comes back soon.
Sorry.
You don't want to.
We adjourn.
Hey, before one other.
We
I
got
don't
the
know if we ever
minutes.
talked about this. The 100% statute that you're talking about the regional school, and I don't know if we ever talked about congratulating Shutesbury on getting 100% statutory. Have we talked about that in a meeting?
We might have when you were gone.
Yeah, I think you were
You might have
gone.
been out.
I missed the celebration.
Up a cork.
We
We'll
all
put it
met
in-
at the AC.
We'll put it in
Oh,
our,
jeez. Last time I'm out of town.
we'll put it in our report. All right.
Yeah.
We get a second on that? Adjourn.
Second.
Hey, just one quick question. Hey, George, on your spreadsheet, you were had the effect of the loans on the average home value. What's the current average home value these days? What are we at now?
269. It's actually 269,151 according to the DOR at the data bank.
269? Okay.
151. Yep, 269.
Thanks. See you guys.
Bye.
Okay, did we have a second? I think I seconded it, didn't I?
I started it. Let's go.
Somebody did.
Arvanitis, aye.
Chartier, aye.
Groves, aye.
Hemingway, aye. Cashew, aye.
Mosier, aye.
Walton, I. Go Celtics.
Yeah.
Celtics.
Good
All
work
right.
tonight, guys. Thank you. It was
All right.
a lot.
All right.
There was.
Good night.
Take care.
Take care.